What's up, team? Sean from Rest to Live here. And I had asked on Twitter if anyone would be interested in me doing a deep dive on artificial machine learning as it applies to the way we think about it as investors, the way to think about it in a basic way, sort of a 101 level way, so that we can go into our investments and understand what companies are doing what, how they're approaching it, what sort of sector of AI they're in. And today's going to be the first part in a couple of part series here. So please, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can follow along here. I'm going to do at least 4 more videos on this topic. So it should be a total of 5, maybe 6 if we stretch it out. So what I really want to do is format this in a way where it's really going to be easy to take advantage of this information. So I put together a deck for this first pass here. And the key callouts I want to make are that we're not talking about a particular company, and we're not talking about a particular investment. We're talking about the idea really of what and how I think about it as someone who works full time in this industry, and how to really break it down into some of the key reasons why, number one, people are looking at AI and machine learning for their businesses, the challenges they traditionally have, as well as some other components we're going to get into during our presentation here. So with all of that said, let's jump right on in and not waste any time, frankly. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to get rocking and rolling here. Excuse me. So let me just make sure we change our view so we can all see it. Cool. So here's the question, right? What is artificial intelligence, and what do investors need to know? I'm going to push that back one. So in essence, our goal here again is to be really simple in our approach to understand what it is, what we're solving for, what the challenges are, how we're going to break down the future sort of deeper dives into this topic. And the goal is not to tell you that one company is the right company or another company is the wrong company, but the goal is to give you enough where you can quickly look at and ascertain what they're doing, what they're solving for, and how big the opportunity might be. So without any further ado, I'm going to sort of just jump right on in here. So at its most basic level, because I wanted to at least set the bar really from the get-go, artificial intelligence is a type of computational programming that performs tasks similar to human intelligence. The easiest way to think about this is we're automating tasks by a computer to not only solve for problems, but to be able to look at the data and understand things we as humans may not be able to do quickly or easily, or things that maybe are just too much for the human mind to handle. So in a nutshell, I want you to think about AI as a way of automating process, a way of coming up with answers to questions, and a way of delivering those answers back to end users to take advantage of them, right? That's going to be the key theme for this entire series is actionable insights tied to operationalization of data. So a couple of things I pulled that are pretty well known in the industry, but I think if you're not in the industry, you wouldn't know this. So 92% of companies are failing to scale analytics programs. Let's talk about this for just a quick second. This doesn't mean that 92% of companies aren't using analytics and AI. That's not true at all. Most companies are taking advantage of some form of business intelligence, analytics, or artificial intelligence. But the key is oftentimes the programs are too hard to use. They're wonky. They require heavy amounts of data. They don't have strong data science teams or data analysts. They don't have people on the staff who can do this work. So the first thing I'm really looking for is who are the companies that are out there that are solving for this? They have strong partner programs. They're able to deliver out of the box pre-templated solutions. They're able to really offer an experience where they can get up and running quickly, relatively easily, or at a minimum, there are lots of people out there who can help them to get it up and running. The other piece of this I want to call out too is companies that lead with insights are 23 times more likely to drive net new customers. So when you think about this, it's really, really important. This means that they're reaching out to customers with the right message at the right time and have the right follow-up response. This is where AI can really help from that perspective as well to make sure that we're not only identifying the right customer profiles, but also the right kind of lead conversion tactics we can take. And I don't want you to think about this super specific, just in general, that like we want to have that level of granularity when we think about solutions as well. And only around 3% of companies are successfully bringing digital transformations to completion. And I will tell you firsthand, I've been seeing this for years. When I first got into the space a long time ago, we were talking about digital transformation, and frankly, it's a conversation that's still happening today. I think the reality is that the modern enterprise is facing a number of challenges. We'll get into this in a second here as to why it's so hard to make these things successful in sort of today's day and age. The first thing I really want to call out here, though, is when we think about this from the standpoint as an investor, I want you to think about the questions you're asking the AI to answer for you. I just gave you a couple of examples here to get the mind turning, but I would urge you to really think about the kind of questions you would come up with, and feel free to throw some of them down in the comments below. I'd love to see what you come up with for ways that machine learning and AI can help to solve all sorts of challenges, be it business, governmental, commercial, private, whatever the case might be. But some of the questions that I often hear, really more than anything else, is like things like, how do I improve my revenue? Right? Is my forecast accurate? How do I grow customer engagement, increase CSAT scores, NPS scores, right? And also, why are we facing customer churn? So a lot of these questions are very much on the front end of the business, right? The operational side of it, the sales, the service, the customer success, the marketing. But we also want to make sure we're keeping our eyes open for the back end, right? We want to understand operations, finance, HR. We want to understand how and where threats live within our organization. We want to understand where and how we can deliver more insights into the outputs by understanding deeper levels of understanding of the data that is going into it. Connectivity to multiple platforms is one great way to think about this as well. So we'll get into that in future videos, but really that data platform perspective is something we'll be talking about at length. And I kind of put a little thing down here that I was thinking of when I was putting this together, that what we need to look at and what these companies really need to offer is a way to operationalize, scale, and execute on data quickly and with less friction. Because this is going to be the key. Data that gets old and insights that are not up to date provide very little value to a business. So the faster these companies can do it, solve for it, and deliver it, the better it's going to be for their customers and the better for us as investors, and we make the right decisions here. So on that note of decisions, what I want to call out is, in my perspective here, companies have a couple of key decision challenges. And I really want to break this down to be super, super easy, so I think we can all be on the same page and not go deep into the weeds of IT infrastructure complexity and et cetera. Although I'm happy to talk about architecture, I don't think it's necessary for the point of what we're doing here. So let's wrap it up, right? Companies have decision challenges. There's really three key areas that I think the modern executive is really particularly challenged. We have what I'm calling the usual, right? This is how we've always done it. This is the way it's always been. No worse words were ever spoken by an executive who's likely to be out of a job. The problem with the usual is they're always looking backwards. They're in the rearview mirror. They're not looking forward, and they don't know what they're driving towards or what's coming around the corner. They don't know if it's a green light or a red light because their eyes are pinned on that rearview dashboard, right? So they're looking backwards. They're oftentimes using the wrong metrics or KPIs because they don't truly understand the business. And there's a lot of misunderstanding of the type of data and the way to think about using the data. So we're going to get, again, really deep into the way I think about this and approach it. But what I want to call out is we need to know what winning looks like and what losing looks like. Do more of the winning and identify more of the losing. This is how we get away from rear view, right? We want to start to look forward. 95% of CEOs actually say that cultural, organizational, and process challenges are major roadblocks. So I want you to think about this for a quick second. Many of these big companies have been around for a long time. They have leadership that's also been around for a long time. There is a sense of feeling that if we do this, it changes the culture. The organization doesn't do it that way. They do it this way. This is the process we've built in. We've done it for 10 years. We don't want to change it today. Those, to me, are major hindrances to a modern AI company, and it could be all different types of companies, by the way, selling into these customers. But the advantage is when they do, it often goes very big, very wide, and solves for a lot of different problems. So our challenge as investors is understanding both the opportunity of the market, the opportunity of those who are selling into the market, and the opportunity for ROI of those that they're selling to. So keep these things in mind as well. The second piece is blind decisions. The biggest problem here is we think we have our eyes open. We think we're seeing things oftentimes from the executive suite. It's this feel that, no, trust me, my gut knows what's going on, or I know who the top sales reps are. I know which products are doing well from a customer satisfaction perspective. I know how long it takes for us to handle customer complaints. But the truth is, oftentimes, data is missing or not even curated properly. A lot of times that data is out of context of the broader picture. And oftentimes when we finally do get it all together, insights arrive far too late for any kind of action to be taken on them. I want you to think about a perfect example. Perhaps one of the reasons why your sales team is struggling isn't because there's something wrong with the product or you have the wrong people. Maybe the issue is that when customers call in for customer success or support problems, it's taking too long to resolve the issue. Their call durations are long. Their first call resolutions aren't happening. So those customers are not likely to continue buying until they solve those open cases. But a lot of times salespeople are disconnected from the support people and don't know this. This is an example of by the time you find out what's going on, you've already lost your sale. So 83% of executives say that the ability to translate data into actionable insights at the right time is a key moment. However, only 22% say they're actually able to do it. So that's a huge TAM and SAM, total addressable market and serviceable addressable market, for many of these AI providers and companies to come in and make a big change. Now, the final piece of this as well is siloed decisions. This happens across the board from companies big to small, where we oftentimes think we're communicating, we think we're on the same page with our peers, but frankly, we just aren't there because we're seeing data in different ways. If your data set doesn't look like my data set and we're building analytics off of it, we could have totally different results. So what we really want to make sure is we have a centralized version of the data, a sort of golden record almost. So the decisions are built from the, and let me even step back for a second here. I want to call this out. One of the key components that I find in very successful companies, both from the client perspective and the vendor select perspective here, is that we want to have a top-down and a bottoms-up approach to data. So we see the macro and we also see the micro. But the reality of it is that today is most decisions are starting from the top down only, right? The systems are often totally disjointed. What this means is sales might have one, operations might have another, finance has another entirely, supply chain is in their total different system. They don't talk to each other. They don't translate that data over. They don't combine it, and they certainly don't communicate it to each other. So these are three big things I'm looking to solve: is how do we break the usual, the blind decision-making, and the siloed decisions? Now, we are going to get deeper into this on some subsequent videos here, but I want to call out some really common uses just to start really getting you thinking about the big opportunity that's out there and how to play it. So, some of the things we see all the time, right? Customer support management, digital assistance, cybersecurity, sales and revenue forecasting. I'm going to go a little bit detailed in a few of these in a moment here, but what I really want you to understand is there is no place where AI doesn't work, okay? It can work anywhere, at any org, from any perspective of any question we're asking. And again, if you remember from the very beginning of this, the key call out is, what are the questions we are asking of our data that we want to be delivered back to us in the form of actionable insights? It's very important we understand, very important, that we understand that we can ask our data anything, but we have to have the right data there, which is why we keep talking about disjointed systems, siloed data, not talking and communicating, right? You're starting to get an idea here that we need a cohesive system that works together amongst itself. So let's keep moving forward. Just a couple examples of customer support management, how AI helps here today, right? How do we leverage data and automation to support our customers? Well, we want our support agents to quickly understand and ascertain the best routes to solving the very first call when a customer has a problem. How long does it take to solve? And how does that affect our CSAT scores or our customer satisfaction? Well, it's simple. If I call in with a problem, I want it to be handled when I call in. I don't want to be passed to a second, to a third customer support rep, still not have my case solved for yet, still trying to work through the problems. It's affecting my business. It's affecting your business. It's taking a lot of time. So a lot of times what we look for with AI is root cause analysis of the problem. Is it common across the org and we're expecting a huge influx of customer calls? Or is it something specific that maybe I wouldn't think of as a one-off that our AI can solve for? Additionally, perhaps what I want is real-time solutioning to tell me what I should suggest next. Should I escalate this case? Or perhaps even suggestions to keep that customer satisfaction high while I'm dealing with it. Other areas we think about from support management could be things like customer success, how we're handling cases, how we're onboarding new customers, what trends we're seeing in the onboarding process, and how to improve those outcomes and reduce bottlenecks within the business. We oftentimes also want to track overall product usage. Excuse me. We want to look at product usage, and this is a big one too, where it's understanding how this can lead to churn, and that churn can be reduced by getting in front of all these problems early. So just again, think big, think broad about how you experience things when you go and use different products. What's being tracked? How do they know how you're using it? How does it tie back into those data sets? Now, again, to sum this up, and I know I put it right on the screen here, the objective is to strengthen interactions with customers in order to promote client retention and increase sales. It's that simple. When we retain happy clients who enjoy what they use, we're more likely to buy more from them or expand the way we use their products today. It's that simple. Now, on the other hand, of course, we have things like digital assistants. This is really cool. This is where we're thinking about chatbots. So when you go onto a website, and oftentimes you might think you're actually talking to a person, a lot of times it's actually a chatbot, and it understands human interactivity and understands narrative understanding of data. So, what we see is a digital assistant. That's basically just a predictive chatbot, trying to understand what you're looking for, how it can best solve for it quickly and easily, without having to actually engage a real human to help solve the problem, right? So in essence, what we have is a computer program that mimics conversations with users. And yes, I put usually online because I couldn't think of any reason it wouldn't be, but then I thought, perhaps on the phone. So the goal here is how do we automate responses to the most frequent, informative, and transactional service desk inquiries? This is a particularly big deal because there is a massive influx of inbound calls to teams that are often understaffed or just too small, or it's time consuming to get those answers. And the vast majority of those inbound calls can be solved by going to an article or a help ticket or a quick phone number to solve a problem, right? Many people out there are taking hundreds of calls a day just to reset passwords, where all a person's really looking for is, hey, where do I go to reset my password? There's even other ways to think about this too. Digital assistants can be on the employee side, right? How do we help employees file spending reports? How do they get their payroll in on time? How do they understand where their taxes are so they can quickly go and grab those at tax season? So just start thinking more and more about the assistant side of AI as well, right? So I threw a couple of benefits on here just to sort of get your brain thinking, but excuse me, how do we offer more self-help and time support? How do we look at capital savings of not having to use headcount for simple solutions? And overall, how does it increase and offer a better service to those folks who are calling in? Now, the last example I want to give, just to really sort of take a 180 from the things we're talking about, is what about even in things like cybersecurity, for example, right? What's the use of AI in cybersecurity look like? Well, we can do things like threat detection and resolution of threats. We can identify areas that are at risk, as well as identifying risky behavior, right? Or do we have data platforms with too many people logging in, or do we have people logging in but leaving their screen open for too long? We want to look at things like database monitoring, government military applications here, even communication protection. The goal is to really let the AI see and understand the way things should be happening and where they're deviating or not following that track. This makes it really easy for a human to step in and fix those problems, but we need quick, proactive identification of those threats in order for that person to go in and stop it. This is a great way to think about it as well from yet another use case. Now, I called this system diversity, and this is the part we're going to really dive deep on some subsequent calls on. There's 4 key areas I'm going to break down in detail, and this is what the following videos will be about. The first is going to be business applications, really understanding what we're solving for, how we're going to market around those solutions, and whether it's a platform versus an app versus simple go-to-market motion. The next piece of it I'm going to go into is the data science side of it. How robust and flexible is the system that's being positioned at a certain company or as a certain product? The third piece is going to be machine learning ops or ML ops. How do we deploy and monitor those models, those algorithms, and make sure that they're being audited and updating and having the right algorithms pushed forward because of statistical relevancy? And the fourth piece is going to be the data platform, right? We're going to look at ELT, scalability, data engineering, and other components there that tie in. And what I really want to get across here is we're going to make it really easy to understand these things. Data science can be complex, but it doesn't need to be. ML ops, it just sounds complex, but it doesn't need to be. So we're going to be looking at some of those components as well and what I'm looking for when I go out and look in the market. Now, I just want to call this right. There's different ways to think about where it makes sense and where it doesn't to look at these as investments. But I like to really understand the biggest picture possible, right? What's the size of the problem? What's the size of the market? What's the size of the opportunity? Okay. Now, the other piece as well is we just want to make sure that we have a clear understanding whether it's a giant company that has an AI division, an AI company with an entire platform, or an AI company that has applications. One isn't better than the other, but understanding why they're different and how that deployment can change is a big deal, because oftentimes a large company might have all 3, but it doesn't mean all 3 make sense for you. So just keep that in mind as we roll through this as well. Now, the biggest piece I want to call out here at the end, and I'm going to get some, for folks who work in this business, they're not going to probably love some of these things, but I'm telling you right now, this is the reality. As investors, we need to think differently. We do not need to think like data scientists. And I believe that decision-making is due for a big change. I think it's already happening, but it's really going to accelerate, especially considering the time of this recording. We're really either in or about to be in a recession. So there's 4 key callouts I want to really put on here. Number 1, data is not the holy grail. the actionable insights from the data are the holy grail. Speed matters. How fast I can get those actionable insights is more important than how accurate they are. I know if you're a data scientist, you hate what I just said, but I'm going to tell everyone on the business side. I want you to think in terms of statistical relevance, not perfection. This is not binary. A model doesn't need to say yes or no, true or false. What I need to know is, I have a 42% chance of closing this deal. How do I make it better? There's a 14% risk of attrition. Okay, well, how do I reduce that? Customer CSAT is likely to come in high. How do I ensure that's the case? I'm looking for statistical advantages in my business. If I could go to Vegas and have a 52% chance of winning everything I play, I'm going to leave a very wealthy man. Okay, that's the difference between statistical relevance and absolute statistical certainty. I don't need certainty. I need speed and delivery. Number 3, AI and machine learning is about helping people do their jobs better, not replacing people. I think there's a big fear, and I hear this all the time. I hear it every day, frankly. There's a big fear that folks believe they're going to be replaced by an AI system or machine learning system. It's completely not the case, and I have never even seen this happen actually in the real world. You hear stories, but I've never seen it in the real world. This is about delivering you, the person doing the job, better information, better insights, a better action that you can take to improve the outcomes that you're already working on, and taking the mundane tasks away. Whether it's a customer service rep, a sales rep, somebody monitoring for cybersecurity, or even a data science team, we want you to do the interesting stuff, the stuff that gets your brain working and puts a smile on your face because you like what you do. Not worrying about how accurate your forecast is, not worrying about going through every line of code because there could be a threat in there somewhere. We want to automate that stuff to let you do your best job. And number 4, I think this is a really, really big call out that is often misunderstood. We must have the ability to remove bias from the process of using AI and machine learning. Some companies have ethical AI built in, some have easy compliance, some don't take this into account at all. We're going to talk about this a little bit on some subsequent calls, but a quick point I want to make here is you have to understand what parts of the data could provide issues with bias or ethical concerns. I won't call them out, but you can probably imagine what certain categories that we're collecting could provide some issues here. We also want to make sure that the folks who built the models originally didn't accidentally have their own bias in there. I think the space is getting much, much better, but still you never really know because you learn from someone who learned from someone who learned from someone, and best practices aren't always best practices. So just calling out that that's something I'm looking for as well. Now, finally, if you made it this far, genuinely thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to continue to execute on this. Obviously, it takes me a lot of time to put this stuff together, but I do have a couple more in line that I'm planning to work on. So thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and like this video. Leave a comment below, and I'll know that you want me to keep making these. So with that, I just want to say a hearty thank you so much. I love talking about AI and machine learning. Ask questions, leave comments, do whatever you think makes sense, and I'll do my best to answer whatever you put down there. So team, thanks so much. Pleasure to see you, and we'll see you again. Bye, everybody.